So without further ado, I'll introduce to you Dr. Hale from Amarillo, Texas.
Colonel Bunker, Mr. Dobbs, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for that introduction, Ziggy, I guess. Our subject is Socialism, the Road to Clinical Terror. This will be followed by the Cataclysm, and if that's not enough excitement for one morning, I don't know what to give to you. Being from the South, I should say the Southwest, Texas to be for sure, I have a fellow Texan here who is a real tiger behind her placid appearance, and I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Wyvell from Midland, Texas. Dr. Wyvell? From Texas, we're kind of neutral in the war between the North and the South. I think it's called the War of Yankee Aggression. And we have continued the war by sending a fellow named Lyndon Johnson up to your area to weaken you so that when we finally get through, you'll know who's won. One thing about Texans, in the war of 1836, we were fighting Mexico for our independence. We lost every battle but the last one. And nowadays, we've been losing consistently, but I'm going to be ready for the last one, and I hope you will be too, and we'll win that one. I have some Southern friends that I've talked to over a period of years, and they consistently say to me that in the South, they're always wanting Yankees to come down, both the white Southerners and the Negro Southerners. They want the Yankees to come down because they want the Negroes to have someone to look down on. And I had never believed that. You know, that's terrible. Racism, those Southerners, my goodness. Then I came to Boston for the first time and went to Harvard and saw your students. I understand now. How many dentists are there present? Very well, how many physicians? Then I have one further question. How many have teeth? Almost 100%. Well, good. If you have teeth, you have a body to go around it, and in some time in your life, you're going to have some relation to either a dentist or a physician. Now, our part of the terror apparatus comes with our needles and some of our tools. The physicians have their own ways of doing it, so I won't bother you with that. Yesterday, we were told by Ed Griffin about a can of worms. I don't know what a nice guy like he is doing with worms. They're pretty dirty a lot of the time. They're essential, but I was surprised that he'd be dealing with worms, and then I got to thinking about worms. He was pulling on worms here and there yesterday, and we're just going to be pulling on one little worm out of the whole pile. But to untangle the pile of worms, all we really have to do is put a good heat lamp with plenty of light on the can, and they'll shrivel up and untangle themselves. So possibly that may be one solution to the problem. Yesterday, Dr. Grant gave you a beans and cornbread approach to problems of the Negro education in the South and in other parts of the country. Us Southerners like the beans and cornbread approach. I couldn't help but be impressed with his two titles, one title of his book, When the Melon is Ripe. If that didn't get your interest up, I don't know what would. And then You Can't Build a Chimney from the Top. Our approach, of course, will be beans and cornbread, and we'll start with a very simple thing, a thing called law, with which each of us is concerned. The purpose of law is the protection of life, liberty, or property. If what is called law does not protect life, liberty, or property, then even though it may be called a law and has come through the legal processes, it is not in reality a law but a usurpation of power. If that's not beans and cornbread enough, I don't know what is. Protection of life, liberty, and property. If you're an ordinary American, and none of you are, you're all rugged individualists, but if you were an ordinary American, you work from January the 1st to May the 9th to make enough money to pay your taxes, which means that you give your life from January the 1st to May the 9th to someone else. If you do this, where is the law that protects that portion of your life? Now, in the dental profession, we have educators. I presume it's a good thing. From the May 1970 issue of the Journal of the American Dental Association, of which I am a member, by the way, I don't know for how long, but we're coming to parting of the ways pretty rapidly now. They have a whole series on education. One of our noted educators has come out about some of the problems relative to education of dental students in the United States. How many of you are WUMPs? WUMPs? Well, are there any POWARs here? WUMPs and POWARs, W-U-M-P, WUMP. It stands for White Upper Middle Class Protestant. Now, the POWARs are the good guys. These are the people on welfare and relief. Now, how many WUMPs do we have here? Well, I don't know what the definition of a WUMP is, so if you will, tell me when we get through. I'm sure that there are also some WUMRUCs, some white upper middle class Roman Catholics here. You people are the problem relative to taking care of the physical needs of the United States. You see, if you didn't have the money, then the dentist wouldn't be working for you. They would be working for the POWARs. But now the federal government has come along and given the POWARs money, and the POWARs in turn are not going to the dental schools where they have in the past to get either free or inexpensive dental treatment. They are now going out to the private practitioners who have been catering to the WUMPs, and there's a shortage of dentists. Now, relative to the POWARs and the WUMPs, I've been told that for each person who receives a day's pay without working, somebody has worked a day without pay. Of the two, and apparently this fellow feels that there should be some kind of class struggle between the WUMPs and the POWARs, and this is their term, not mine. Of the two, the POWARs enjoy it very much. To me, the WUMPs are a bunch of fools. And when they begin to understand just how foolish they are, they're working a day consistently without pay from January the 1st to May the 9th. I wonder how foolish they're really going to feel. Now, relative to the ultimate effect on the physicians and dentists in the United States as to what the current trends are leading toward, both through the leadership of the American Medical Association, the American Dental Association, and Health, Education, and Welfare, all of whom work in close harmony together. The ultimate effect will be that each physician and dentist and individual involved in the health professions will be put into a position where the federal government, through their multitude of bureaus, will be able to say to each individual, submit or be crushed. The answer is all found in one simple word that the physicians and the dentists need to learn to say consistently: no. But they haven't learned to say it yet. They want all that federal goodies, they want the federal control, and they apparently want their own destruction. Now, for a good overall picture of the problems and the background facing the medical profession, put into as simple a presentation as I've ever been able to see, I'd recommend to you the June Bulletin of the John Birch Society. As I understand, this is a secret organization, but if you either write Belmont, Massachusetts and send them a quarter, or if you contact some of these secret members, you may be able to get a June Bulletin. There's an excellent presentation in there on the socialization of the health professions. One way that it's sold by the people planners is that medical care is a right to the powars. Eventually it'll be a right to the wumps, because the wumps will become the powars after the powars become the wumps. If that's too complicated for you, well, I'll explain it to you later on. Medical care is a right. When you consider that this one thing is devastating to the health professions, we would recommend that you look into it a little bit more and follow the conclusion clear on through. If medical care is a right to every individual simply because they are an individual, then they also have a right to ride on the airlines. In other words, they need to get from here to there. I don't know why, but they should have a right to ride on the airlines. Because the powars don't have enough money, then the federal government will pay their bills. But what happens is the same thing that happens with the physicians and dentists. We take it out of one pocket, we give it to the federal government, it leaks all the way down to the powar, and then we put it back into the other pocket after we've given a portion of our life to take care of that individual. Frankly, I agree with Ed Griffin that free private enterprise system is still by far the best. Now, one problem that the American Dental Association has at the present time is a shortage of funds. I wouldn't understand that because, as you all know, all dentists are rich. Somehow or other I haven't got in on it yet, so practically all dentists are rich. This is an information bulletin put out in May of this year by the American Dental Association requesting a $20 increase in our dues per dentist, which means we'll be paying something like $70 per year per dentist for 120,000 dentists to the American Dental Association. Now, they explain how they are very frugal and economical and efficient in the spending of our money, but they have problems and they need more money, $20 per dentist across the United States. One of the reasons that they give for this is found in some interesting statistics. And they start out with this, that the federal government bureaus through health, education, and welfare are increasing so rapidly that the American Dental Association does not have enough on its staff to liaison with each of the bureaus. Now, to give you an idea of how much the federal health spending, that's your money and my money, your life and my life, that they are spending since 1960. In 1960, the federal government was spending $3 billion per year for health care of all kinds in the United States. In 1969, or for the 1970 budget, now that we have a conservative Republican president, we are going on an economy binge, and we have gone down from $3 billion in 1960 to the present budget of $18 billion for health care in 1970. Now, in order for the American Dental Association, to know where all the goodies are through these different bureaus, they need more people for liaison. In other words, we're having to go find out about it. The government isn't telling us where the goodies are. The problems are almost overwhelming to the American Dental Association, so they need to increase their staff. Now, the American Dental Association will spend in the Washington office this year $114,000 just to find out where the money is for the dental schools and the POARs and what have you. The American Hospital Association has 11 executives, 6 clerical personnel, and a budget of approximately $400,000 to make contact with Washington bureaus. The Washington office of the American Medical Association has 36 employees, an approximate budget of $1.5 million, just to find out where the goodies are and to try to influence legislation. Now, before they used to try to stop the federal legislation. Now they have found the answer. If we get in on the ground floor, we can control it. So we're getting in on the ground floor, apparently. There are a number of other groups and organizations interested in spending your lives, and we won't go into them. I have a feeling they'll be touched on in a moment or two. Now, why don't physicians and dentists enter the fight against socialized medicine? After all, they're committing suicide. Being around Siggy, I'm a little careful about my quotations, but somebody said that Lenin said, communism must be built by non-communist hands. All right, socialized medicine and socialized dentistry must be built by non-communist physicians and dentists. And it's just that simple. We haven't learned to say no to the federal programs. There are several reasons, and these will be generalizations because it won't fit all of our physicians or dentists. But overall, there will be 3 things that keep the dentists and physicians from entering into the fight. Number 1 is the doctrine of inevitability that the socialists consistently put out. At least this has been the problem I've run into across the country. I talk to these fellas and they say, well, what you're saying is right. It is bad. I don't disagree at all. Financially, things are terrible. It's really a horrible picture, and I realize that we're going to be socialized. But socialism is inevitable. And why are you going to fight something that's inevitable? What I'm going to do is rearrange my office so that I can work with them. I walk on down the street. The doctrine of inevitability, of course it isn't inevitable. It's only inevitable if the physicians want it. And apparently they do. Second problem is materialism. I think J. Edgar Hoover has had quite a bit to say about the materialistic influences in our country that have been put here through the actions of the conspiracy. The affluence. If a physician is making a pile of money, he doesn't want to rock the boat, even though he's paying taxes from January the 1st to May the 9th. His wife's happy. The country club crowd is nice to get along with. His golf courses are quite an interest to him. And to rock the boat is to hurt the system. And then there's a third problem of just plain apathy. Can't happen to me, I couldn't care less. Apathy is involved, of course, with the other 2. The reason that our physicians and dentists are not working is because mainly of apathy. They have apathy because they're not motivated. They are not motivated because they lack knowledge. And this is where you come in if you are a lay person who has to go down this road to clinical terror, either through socialism or because you have some physical need. What can you do about it? First of all, you can talk with your physician or your dentist. You're going to have a contact with them at some time in the either near or distant future. there's nothing at all to keeping you from asking a question. Your question should be, I'm concerned about the way things are going, and I wonder what I'm going to do when you've been socialized and are no longer available to me to take care of my physical needs. There are other questions that you can ask, and by all means ask them to stimulate your physicians and your dentist. Another thing that you can do is to provide material from the Association of American Dentists, and I just happen to have a little up here for those of you who might like to see the program that we have available. Encourage them to look into the materials that we have, which is just as applicable to the physician's problems as it is to the dentist. And then, by all means, don't just think about it, but go ahead and do it. We get into a problem quite often that when we see something in print, we take it for granted that it's already done. For instance, how many of you have heard of the Genocide Convention? Very well. Now, most of you know that we should oppose this because it will very seriously cripple our judicial system in the United States, which is sad enough as it is. Most of you have heard that we should write and all. Now, honestly, how many of you have written on the Genocide Convention? All right, project this percentage through the rest of our conservative organizations, and you can see why we aren't winning. It's because we see this, we know it should be done, but we just don't do it. So when you see your physician, find some way to needle him, of course verbally. Now in the dental profession, we are still probably the last under free private enterprise. We are practicing preventive dentistry, or trying to. If we can stop the disease from occurring, then we save the patients money, we save them trouble, and they have better oral health. We approach this on two bases. One is to put the responsibility of daily health care on the mother of the family, where it should have been all along. Good health must be achieved daily by the individual. We give them knowledge in their fight against disease. We call it a control program. There'll be much more for you, and for those of you who would like to talk about the AAD or about any aspects of socialized medicine or dentistry, will be available after the cataclysm. Thank you again for your attention.